Okay, so the 12-inch MacBook is dead. So is the quote-unquote MacBook Escape. In place of the MacBook is now just the MacBook Air, newly updated with a True Tone display. In place of the Escape is Touch Bars, Touch ID, and T2 chips all the way down. But does that make things simpler or even more complicated? What is Apple doing? Hit subscribe, rabbit punch the bell gizmo so YouTube will actually be forced to tell you when new videos hit, and then let's dive into it. I'm Rene Ritchie, and this is Vector. So yeah, RIP 12-inch MacBook. Introduced in March of 2015, it was supposed to do for the next generation of MacBooks what the second generation Air had done, and it did. Totally. Kinda. It introduced a new design, where the glowing Apple logo and FaceTime camera quality were sacrificed to the gods of paper-thin top cases, with a terraced battery and, you know it, the very first butterfly keyboard. But also with the excellent Force Touch trackpad, USB-C, and gold and then rose gold to the previous very black and white MacBook line. Now, many of those changes, for good and yeah, for ill, are found across Apple's MacBooks. But unlike the MacBook Air, which started off at $1299 in 2010, but eventually dropped down to $999, the MacBook never dropped below $1299. With a chassis that would probably need significant updates to be pushed forward, at least on the Intel platform, and the new MacBook Air ramping up and pricing down at the same time, just had to die. But it sure does leave open that 12-inch slot for an ARM MacBook or iOS iBook one day. What? A nerd can dream. For now though, that leaves the MacBook Air as Apple's only ultra-portable, and Apple's really leaning into it with this update. It's getting a True Tone display, which is Apple's technology that adjusts the white point based on the ambient color temperature. In other words, it keeps white white and not warm yellow or cool blue white, more like paper white. What it's not getting is anything in the way of a spec update. Instead, it's getting a price drop down to $1099, which is much closer to that magic $999 number that conflated the MacBook Air with being not just ultra portable, but being ultra affordable for years as well. It's also getting the updated third generation butterfly keyboard that rolled out with the MacBook Pro revision earlier this year. And yeah, I guess that means if you're keeping track and waiting on that scissor keyboard update Guoming-Chi rumored for the 2019 MacBook Air, you'll just have to keep waiting, at least for now. The quote-unquote MacBook Escape is also gone. Well, at least the Escape part. Back in 2016, when Apple redesigned the MacBook Pro, in addition to all the 12-inch MacBook style changes, they also introduced Thunderbolt 3, the Touch Bar, added Touch ID, and debuted the T-Series custom security chip. And with it, Apple released a low-end MacBook Pro without the Touch Bar, Touch ID, and T2. Targeted at MacBook Air lovers in a time when that machine hadn't seen any significant updates for years, it kept the traditional developer-friendly function key row intact, even if it only had 2 ports instead of 4. As Apple spec bumped the higher-end MacBook Pro over the last couple of years though, the low-end MacBook Pro got increasingly left behind. Until now. Also kinda. As of today, Apple is bringing that low-end MacBook Pro fully into the present, and that means, yeah, Touch Bar, Touch ID, and T2 security chip. The Touch Bar is Apple's embedded OLED display that surfaces everything from keyboard shortcuts to convenient controls, supposedly ideally when and as you need them. Which is great news for people who really want Touch ID, but not so great news for people who also really want that escape key, especially developers. It's also being updated to Intel's 8th generation Coffee Lake processors and Intel Iris Plus Graphics 645. It's not the same 9th generation Intel Coffee Lake refresh, yeah, that's what Intel really calls it, or AMD graphics you get in the higher end, but it's also not the same price as the higher ends. Apple's also adding a new 3 microphone system for better FaceTime calls and for Siri, including Yo Siri, but they're keeping the price the same at $1299. What intrigues me about these updates, and what I kinda like about them despite the loss of the 12-inch and the Escape, is what they suggest about Apple's current strategy. Rather than push out maximum spec bumps across the line, Apple is maxing out only at the high end. At the low end, Apple is either dropping the price, like with the MacBook Air, or adding and equalizing feature sets at the same price, like with the low-end MacBook Pro. With the biggest knock on Apple recently being pricing, that makes the kind of sense to me that just does. And at the same time, it cleans up the MacBook lineup. No more trying to figure out the 12-inch MacBook from the Air, or the high-end Air from the lowest-end Pro. Now you get the Air, or if you need more performance, you get as much Pro as you need. It's just that simple. Touch bar or no touch bar. It's almost simple contact simple. No more appointments, no more waiting rooms, no more overpaying. Simple Contacts brings a doctor's office to wherever you are, whenever you need it. So you can skip the office visit, but not the care. And if you have an unexpired prescription, just upload a photo of it or your doctor's info and order your lenses in minutes for a great price. They do all the hard work, all for you. Here's how it works. Using your phone or your computer, you can take the Simple Contacts vision test in 5 minutes from literally anywhere, your couch, your office, the airport, wherever. Then a real doctor reviews your tests in 24 hours, and if your vision hasn't changed, writes you a new prescription. And boom, a fresh supply of your brand of lenses is on its way to your door. Best of all, you get $20 off your first Simple Contacts order just by going to simplecontacts.com/vector20 or entering vector20 at checkout. Now, this isn't a replacement for your periodic full eye health exam. You still need that, but it is the most convenient way to renew a prescription and reorder your contacts if your vision hasn't changed. Again, get $20 off your first Simple Contacts order just by going to simplecontacts.com/vector20 or entering vector20 at checkout. Thanks, Simple Contacts, and thanks to all of you, always, for supporting the show. Okay, so since this is back to school season, Apple is also giving students $100 off the new MacBooks, which means the MacBook Air is going for $999 in education, and the baseline MacBook Pro $1199. Plus, they're throwing in a pair of Beats Studio 3 wireless headphones with the purchase of a qualifying MacBook or iMac. It's back to school time. But it's what this means for next generation MacBooks, including and especially the frequently rumored 16-inch MacBook Pro. But got a video on that right in the description. Meanwhile, hit like if you do, hit subscribe if you haven't already, and then let me know what you think of these new MacBook Air and MacBook Pro updates. Will you mourn the 12-inch and the Escape, or are you all in on this less expensive, more feature-full announcement? Thank you so much for watching, and see you next video.